6 ordinary civilians defeated the British Empire. Their names stayed secret for 150 years. Without them, America would not exist. On September 11, 1780, British forces prepared to execute their final strike against George Washington. They had 17,000 troops positioned in New York. Washington had just 9,000 starving soldiers left. The British commander, General Henry Clinton, knew exactly where Washington would strike next. Or so he thought. But Clinton had no idea that his every move was being watched. A laundrywoman hanging clothes. A merchant selling goods. A farmer tending his fields. They were all spies. And they had just uncovered the most dangerous secret of the entire war. A secret that would have ended America before it began. What they did next changed everything. But here is what nobody saw coming. The spy ring was not run by soldiers. It was not controlled by trained agents. It was 6 regular people who had never spied before in their lives. And they were about to pull off the most critical intelligence operation in American history. It started in the summer of 1778. The Revolutionary War was going terribly. George Washington had lost nearly every major battle. The British occupied New York City, Philadelphia, and Newport. They controlled the Atlantic coast. Washington was desperate. He had no idea what the British were planning. His scouts could not get close enough. His messengers kept getting captured. He needed intelligence, and he had none. That is when Major Benjamin Talmadge stepped forward. Talmadge was a 24-year-old cavalry officer. He grew up in Setauket, New York, right in British territory. He knew people there. People the British would never suspect. He proposed something radical. Build a spy network of civilians. People who could blend in. People who lived in occupied New York. Washington agreed, but with one condition. Total secrecy. No written names. No direct contact. Only coded messages. Talmadge recruited his childhood friend Abraham Woodhull first. Woodhull was a farmer in Setauket. He had access to British-occupied Long Island. He could travel to New York City without suspicion. But Woodhull was terrified. He had seen what happened to captured spies. They were hanged in public. Their bodies left swinging as warnings. Talmadge convinced him anyway. They created code names. Woodhull became Samuel Culper Sr. The spy ring was born. But they needed more people. People deeper inside British operations. What they assembled next was absolutely brilliant. Robert Townsend joined in 1779. He ran a coffee house in Manhattan, right under British noses. British officers drank there every single day. They talked freely. They trusted him. Townsend became Samuel Culper Jr. He listened to every conversation. He recorded troop movements, supply shipments, attack plans. But getting the intelligence out was the hardest part. Manhattan was an island. British checkpoints everywhere. Anyone crossing could be searched. They needed a courier nobody would suspect. Enter Anna Strong. She was a housewife in Setauket. Her husband was in a British prison. She hung laundry on her clothesline facing the Long Island Sound. A black petticoat meant Townsend had intelligence ready. The number of handkerchiefs told them which cove to use for pickup. Caleb Brewster handled the water crossing. He was a whaleboat captain. He rowed across the Sound in the dead of night. He picked up messages and delivered them to Talmadge. The system worked flawlessly for months. They intercepted plans for British raids. They identified supply routes. They saved Washington's army multiple times. But here is what nobody knew. The British were getting suspicious. In March 1780, a rival spy was caught. His name was John Andre. He revealed under interrogation that the Americans had a network. British intelligence started hunting. They knew someone in Manhattan was leaking. They just did not know who. The Culper ring was now operating with a target on their backs. And then they discovered something that changed the entire war. A betrayal so massive it could have ended the revolution in a single day. In August 1780, Robert Townsend overheard something impossible. British officers were celebrating in his coffee house. They were toasting a deal with an American general. A general who was selling them West Point. West Point was America's most critical fortress. It controlled the Hudson River. It protected all of New England. If the British took it, they would cut America in half. The war would be over. Townsend sent the message immediately. Samuel Culper Jr. to Samuel Culper Sr. Woodhull passed it to Brewster. Brewster rowed across the Sound. Talmadge got the intelligence on September 8, 1780. He rowed straight to George Washington. But here is the unbelievable part. The traitor was Benedict Arnold, one of America's greatest war heroes. The man who had won the Battle of Saratoga. Washington trusted him completely. Arnold had been secretly negotiating with the British for months. He was going to surrender West Point for £20,000. He was going to hand over the plans to the fort. He was going to open the gates and let British forces walk in. The attack was scheduled for September 21, 1780. Washington had 13 days. He kept Arnold close. He did not reveal that he knew. He positioned troops around West Point quietly. On September 21, British forces approached. Arnold prepared to surrender. And then Washington sprung the trap. Arnold fled to a British ship at the last second. The British attack failed completely. West Point stayed in American hands. The revolution survived. But nobody could know why. If the British discovered the spy ring, they would execute everyone. So Washington kept it secret. Even from his own officers. The Culper Ring continued operating for 3 more years. They provided intelligence that led to the victory at Yorktown in 1781. They identified British supply weaknesses. They tracked naval movements. They won the war in the shadows. And then they disappeared. No credit. No recognition. Just silence. The Culper Ring stayed secret for 150 years. Their names were not revealed until the 1930s. Historians found coded letters in Washington's archives. They cracked the cipher. They discovered Samuel Culper Sr. was Abraham Woodhull. Samuel Culper Jr. was Robert Townsend. The laundry signals came from Anna Strong. The truth finally came out. These were not soldiers. They were a farmer, a merchant, a housewife, and a boat captain. They never fired a shot. They never wore a uniform. But they saved America. They proved that intelligence wins wars. That ordinary people can do extraordinary things. That courage does not always look like a battlefield. Today, the CIA honors them. The Culper Ring is considered America's first intelligence network. Their methods are still studied. Their legacy lives in every intelligence operation since. 6 people changed the course of human history. And almost nobody knew their names. If a story like this kept you here, subscribe. A new forgotten chapter drops every week. And here is the question nobody asks. If 6 civilians could outsmart the British Empire in 1780, what other secret networks operated in the shadows of American history? The answer is darker than you think. Subscribe for a new untold story every day.